My name is Raymond Burr.
With your help, we'll make it happen.
In 1967, Montreal was hosting Expo 67, and the whole world came to visit. There was a shared vision that all things were possible. It was a time of change in Canada and in BC. This positive energy was infectious, and the Workmen's Compensation Board recognized a need to change with the times. But people were still getting hurt on the job. On April 3, 1967, one of the worst mining disasters in BC history occurred near the small communities of Natal and Michel in the Kootenays. A massive explosion killed 15 workers and 10 more were injured. The board immediately sent officers to assist the workers and families with their claims. After a thorough accident investigation, changes to the regulation were made that addressed the dangers of coal dust. The Balmer North coal mine tragedy and other incidents of the time underscored the vulnerability faced by BC workers. A symbol of this change was reflected in a new logo that was introduced in 1968. It featured a pair of hands arranged in such a way as to appear to protect a worker. As BC's economy grew, the WCB responded by opening new area offices in Nanaimo, Prince Rupert, Terrace, and Kamloops. This growth continued through the 1970s, with offices opening in Cranbrook, Courtenay, Chilliwack, Penticton, Williams Lake, and Fort St. John. The workplace continued to evolve under amendments to WCB legislation. For example, employer and worker representatives now had the right to accompany WCB officers on all job site inspections. Independent contractors were now subject to the Industrial Health and Safety Regulation. And it became an offense for employers or supervisory personnel to dissuade workers from reporting injuries or hazardous conditions to the WCB. Another sign of how the board was becoming more responsive was when in 1968, a full-time board of review was established. Its mandate was to reduce the waiting time for claim appeal decisions. That same year, the board instituted the Bravery Award to recognize heroic acts of workers. The first award was presented to Mr. William Whitaker of North Vancouver for his selfless rescue of a drowning fellow worker. Prior to 1972, if a worker was injured on the job, they would have to wait 3 days before their compensation benefits began. This loss of income could be a hardship for workers and their families. So, in 1972, new legislation came into effect that reduced this waiting period to the day of injury. It was so successful, this legislation remains in place today. In the 1970s, the public's view of the workplace was changing. The role of women, people with disabilities, workplace health and safety, workers' and employers' rights and even the Workmen's Compensation Board itself were all being reevaluated. In this atmosphere of change, the board decided to strive towards a more positive public presence.
Hello, my name is Raymond Burr. I would like to talk to you on behalf of the Workmen's Compensation Board on the subject of hiring the handicapped worker in British Columbia.
The board developed an ad campaign featuring well-known Hollywood actor Raymond Burr, famous for his roles in the TV shows Perry Mason and Ironside.
I've discovered that most handicapped people can offer not only their natural skills, but something extra, and that's determination.
In the 4 decades since this commercial was released, some of the accepted terminology has changed, but the intent behind the campaign has not. It was a concept ahead of its time.
I urge employers to hire the handicapped.
The Workmen's Compensation Board of British Columbia.
This time period challenged many accepted social norms. The common view of who was and who was not a worker was changing, and organizations needed to consider how they were being viewed by the public. The board was no different, and in 1974, in order to better reflect the entirety of the workforce, the organization changed its name to the Workers' Compensation Board of British Columbia. By the 1970s, the board had 14 area offices located across the province. The challenge was how to connect together this network of offices and workers. In 1975, computer facilities were expanded to provide an online communications network, linking the area offices to the head office in Vancouver. This online system gave staff immediate access to claimant history, as well as new claims information. The board's Rehabilitation Center, located at 37th and Heather in Vancouver, was so successful it had outgrown its space. The board acquired land in Richmond, and a new and much larger state-of-the-art rehabilitation center was soon under construction. In 1978, the Leslie R. Peterson Rehabilitation Center was officially opened, providing on-site rehabilitation treatment, occupational therapy, and temporary accommodation for injured workers from across the province. This facility was recognized as one of the leading rehabilitation and occupational therapy centers in the world. On January 7, 1981, 4 construction workers fell to their deaths from the 36th floor of the Bentall 4 tower in downtown Vancouver. This tragic incident shocked the public and garnered national media attention.
We had a crew of guys working on Bentall 4, and they had taken the project from street level right up to the 36th floor. When, without warning, it tilted, and it went right down, and 4 of them lost their lives.
During the investigation and inquest that followed, the WCB played a vital role in determining not only the causes of the accident, but also providing recommendations to ensure this would never happen again. Changes to the regulation followed. The land purchased in Richmond was always envisioned to be more than just the site of the rehabilitation center. Plans were drawn up and a new head office was built adjoining the clinic. In a massive 3-day exercise in November of 1982, the entire administration staff moved from the existing head office in Vancouver to the new location in Richmond. Shortly after, the WCB updated the logo by incorporating the image of the province into the design. A large illuminated logo was placed on the building. It became a landmark in the city of Richmond. In the 1980s, Rick Hansen began his groundbreaking Man in Motion tour, traveling around the world to raise awareness and funds for spinal cord research. The board, realizing it had a shared interest in the tour and its goals, worked with Rick Hansen to produce a campaign promoting the idea of hiring disabled workers.
I want to encourage each and every one of you to reach for your goals and your hopes and dreams in life, because anything you believe possible can come true if you're willing to believe and persevere.
Out of the Man in Motion partnership, the board created an innovative program called Accessibility. This 12-month program was designed to train seriously injured workers as computer programmers. It was the first program of its kind in Canada, and the inaugural class of workers graduated in 1988 with 100% job placement.
In Pat Newman's case, it was a back injury to beat. Hundreds of disabled people have faced their challenges and won.
With your help, we'll make it happen.
Help them and yourself. Hire a disabled worker. Call right now for information and assistance. Workers' Compensation Board of British Columbia.
In 1989, Bill 27, the Workers' Compensation Amendment Act, as it was known, was to change the entire governance structure of the board. Governors replaced commissioners, and employers, workers, and public representatives now had input into how the organization was run. The quarter century spanning 1967 to 1991 was one of challenge and change for the Workers' Compensation Board. A new name, new branding, and a new public-facing strategy. The board was changing with the times. The rights of women, disabled, and other workers were better recognized and improved. At the same time, many devastating workplace tragedies occurred, and the need for improved workplace health and safety remained at the forefront. In the coming quarter century, technology would play an increasing role in the workplace. The board would take on a new name and identity, and we would experience some of the most tragic workplace incidents in our province's history. Join us next time for the fourth quarter century of WorkSafeBC, 1992 to 2017.